Welcome to our video series where we're going to go through a grade 12 IT or Information Technology Prac exam or paper 1 from November 2024. So you can use this video for revision. I would strongly suggest that you go to the video description, go get the data files, go get the question paper and go try out the questions and then come back to this video and see which questions you struggled with so that you can consolidate on your learning. So let's get stuck into the first question, which is generally a question that goes over a lot of work covered in grade 10 and 11. Now, before I go into that question, I just want to highlight something that you might experience when you are going through a prac exam, particularly from the department. And that involves getting an exe file, which they mention here in the instructions, that you have to extract the data files and they will give you a password. So over here, let's pretend this is my exam drive. That is the exe file which your school or organization that you're writing the exam with will give you. And so you can see it matches the name and we're going to double click on it. And it's going to ask us where do we want to extract it. I normally will be in the same folder, so I'll just leave it as it is. And then I'm going to click extract and it's going to ask for a password. And that's where this password comes in. So I'm going to just put it over there so we can see it. And you must type it in as it is. So there's a hash, then run in capital letters, for@new with a capital N in front. And just make sure that you view the password, see that everything's correct. And then if you're happy, you can click on OK, and then it will extract the files. Now let's go have a look at it. Over here, you'll see a folder has arrived. Now you need to rename that folder as your examination number. Now, before I do that, what I'm going to do first is I'm first going to just double check that the extraction happened correctly. So I'm going to go into the folder and then just go into any of the folders and make sure that you see data files. If the data files are there, then you know that it's extracted correctly. Sometimes if you type in the password incorrectly, it'll create all the folders, but it won't put the files there. So before you rename anything, go just check that they're there. Now you can go and rename that folder as your examination number. I don't have an examination number, so I'm just making some random numbers. Put your examination number as your folder, and that's going to be your final one. You don't want to do that, and then you find out the files aren't there, then you have to extract it again and then redo the folder name and so on. So that's how you extract your data files. So remember that for your departmental exams. So let's get stuck into question 1, which are general programming skills, normally stuff that you would have done in grade 10 or 11. And I've already opened up the file, but that's what it looks like. You can see the different sections for question 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. So let's get stuck into question 1.1. Very simple questions, normally stuff from like term 1 of grade 10. So question 1.1.1 on the button for Q11. So in our file, you can see there it is. We're just going to double click on that button. And here's where we're going to write the code. They're asking us to generate a random number from 5 to 10, both numbers included. So a number that's generated can include a 5 or a 10 and display that in the edit box. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to create a variable. You could probably do it in one step, but I'm just going to just create an integer variable. Generate that number. So to generate a random number in that range, there are two ways that we can do it. We can use random range. Now, if I type random range and it works, that tells me that math has already been added at the top. So if I scroll up here, you can see they've already given us math. While we're here, just by the way, just a reminder, at the top of your data files, you must include your examination number. So please make sure that you do that for all of your files. So whatever your examination number, make sure you put it as a comment at the top line and then at the down here, let's go. So we want to have a random range from, what number do we want to start from? We're going to start from 5 and we want to go until 10. But if you remember, random range goes from 5 until 1 before that number. So if we want to include 10, we actually need to go from 5 until 11. So just remember that with random range, it goes from that number until 1 before that number. And now that we've got our random number, we can now in the edit box for edit Q11, what property? The text property we want to change to rnum. But this is an integer, and this is a string, so we're going to convert it from what it is, an integer, to a string to put it in there. You could have probably just put that random range part in there. That would have worked as well. Just take note that your answers will be different to the actual example because it's random. So if I click there, you can see it's a whole bunch of random numbers. There you saw a 10. There you saw a 5, there was a 5 there, so it is working. Another way that you can do this is for interest sake. If you're trying to generate a random number from 5 to 10, you can use the randoms. You could have said inum equals to random, and then you get a number. So if I give the number 5, for example, that will generate a random number from 0 to 4. So the way to get a specific range of numbers is you first want to say how many random numbers must I generate. So if I want to generate random numbers from 5 to 10, that's going to generate me 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 6 possible numbers. So I will put that as 6, which means it'll generate a random number from 0 until 5. But then I'm going to add whatever the first number must be. So I'm going to add 5. So that means the 0 will become a 5 and the 5 will become a 10. So that's how you generate numbers from 5 to 10 if you don't want to use the random range. So you find random of how many possible numbers there are, and then you add whatever the first option is. So for example, a dice ranges from 1 to 6. So you would say random 6 because there's 6 possible numbers. And what's the first number? A 1. So you're going to go from random 6 plus 1. So it goes from 0 to 5 becomes 1 to 6. Just some information if you want to do it a different way. So let's move on to the next question. 1.1.2, we've been provided with a constant number. There's the number. If we go to that part of the question, there it is. There's a constant. Write code that uses a mathematical function to display the value of the constant rounded up to the next whole number in the spin edit. It must round up, not round up. It must go to the top version of that number. Rounding up, if we want it always to move up, if you think about a house, what's above you? It's the ceiling. So we want to use the ceil function. So all we're going to do is in that spin edit. So that's where we're going to display it. So over here, we're going to say the spin edit, Q112. What property of the spin edit? The value property is going to equal to whatever this number is, but we want to round it up. So that means we're going to use the ceil function. If I spell it correctly, I think it's EL. There we go. So ceiling rounds the number to the top version of it, to the roof or the ceiling of it. If we used floor, it would round it down to the lowest part of the number, which would be to a 5. So I think that would work. So let's try it. Round up. There we go. It did display to 6, which is what we want to display. I think that's correct. Okay, great. Let's move on to 1.2. Here we've got a right-angled solid cone, and they give me the formula for the surface area of that cone, and we want to do the following. We can extract the values, so that's basically our input, use the values to and appropriate mathematical functions to work out the total surface area, and then display it to 2 decimal places. So this input, process, output, very simple. So let's start with the first bit, which we're going to make 2 variables. Now, just for interest's sake, I'm just going to scroll down and see what the values look like. So do you see there they're integer values, but if just look further down, there they're given a possibility of real numbers. So our inputs must be real. I don't think they mention it anywhere else, but I knew my answer was definitely going to be real because we got square roots and we got pi. So the answer is definitely real, but I just wanted to make sure my inputs were real. And there you can see they do want to consider real values as inputs. So we want them to be reals. So I'm going to over here make 2 real variables. One for the height and one for the radius, if I remember correctly. And let's put RA as our answer. Let's call it a answer like that. And those are my real variables. So let's do the input first. First, the height we are going to get from EDT, question 1.2H. By what property? It's the text property, but this is a string and this is a real. So we can convert it from what it is, which is a string, to what we want it to become a real. But remember, there is no string to real function. What is it? It is a string to float. And then we're literally going to do the exact same thing with the radius, except for it'll be RR there, and we're going to get it from the 1.2R1. Okay, so there's my 2 inputs. Now we're going to work out the answer. So let's take it step by step. We're going to first take the pi, which is, we can just type in pi as is. That'll go get the constant basically for pi. And we're going to multiply it by the R value, which is RR. And then we're going to multiply that by a whole thing in brackets. Remember, this whole thing happens in brackets. So let's open up our brackets there. Now inside these brackets, we're going to have R again. So RR plus, and then we're going to have the square root. So we're going to type in square root, and inside of the square root we're going to have h squared, which is my square of RH, and then we're going to add the radius squared, square of RR. So let's just check that our brackets are correct. If I click on that bracket, it does end there, that bracket ends there, that bracket ends there, that bracket ends there. I think they're all there. I think that's correct. So that's my calculation. And then we want to display the value in the label. So the label Q12 dot what property? The caption property must equal. Now let's make sure it's displayed exactly how they want it. So we just display it like it is. And they say rounded to 2 decimal places. Now that's tricky. Now some people think that we can just use the float to string f function. I know the memo does say that. Technically for me, round means you must round it. So for me, I would actually use the round to function. So we take that whole answer. Let's actually do it on a brand new line actually. So I'm going to take our answer is going to equal to whatever's our answer as well. So don't just take it and put it back in there, but we're going to say round 2. I'm going to take that answer and round it to 2 decimal places. Now, if you take round 2 like that, it's actually going to round it, I think, to the nearest hundreds. You want to put a -2 there. Let's just see if that works. If we just display that, float to string, and display our answer like that, let's just see what it does. If we display it, so we got 5 and 10 display, and we do get that answer. I think it's exactly like it is there. And if we go to 7.9, so let's just drag it here, 7.9 over here, and then 22.4, and we get the exact same answer. So that's our round 2 function. I know the memo uses a float to string f to do the rounding, but that for me technically is the correct way to round your answer. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the next question. 1.3. We've got a text file called houses that contains street address and the number of bedrooms for each. So it's in this format. It's got the street address on the one line, and then the next line is the number of bedrooms. So like that's the address, that's how many bedrooms. That's the address, that's the number of bedrooms. So code has been provided for the declaration of the text file. We must assign, they actually give me the steps, assign the text file variable to the text file variable, ensure that we read the text file starts at the first line, that we read through the text file using a loop, and we extract both the address and the number of bedrooms, and then we're just going to display it in the rich edit in this format. We want to say the street address followed by a dash, followed by the number of bedrooms, followed by the text bedroom house. So it looks something like that. So I've got the text file over here. You can actually see what it looks like. Every time we want to display, we actually need to read 2 things before we do the display. So if I just go over here and just go into my text file algorithm like a zombie, I know it, I've learned it, I've studied it. So I know our first step is assign file, and we're going to assign our text file variable, this t file, or to the name of the text file, which is houses.txt. I think it's houses. There it is. So it's houses. So put the S there. Make sure you do it like that. Then you're going to reset the t file. Then you're going to use a while loop, while not end of file, t file. Then you're going to have a begin and end. Then you're going to read line from the text file into some sort of string. So I'm going to make a string here called s line of type string. So we're going to say s line, read a line into that text file. We're going to do something here with the text file line, and then at the end we're going to close the file of t file. That's your text file algorithm. If you see any reading from a text file, you just write this every single time. You go through the motions, you make sure you get all the marks. Now we can look at the nitty-gritty of the question. Now the nitty-gritty of the question is, when we read, we actually reading 2 lines. We want to read the line for the street and the line for the bedroom. So I'm actually going to change my line variable to address. So when we read it the first time, we're going to read the address. I'm actually going to read it a second time because I want to get both lines before we display it. I don't want to try to work out which line have we read. And then the second line we're going to read is the bedrooms, S bedroom. So let's make that. So the first time we read it, it'll read that line, then it'll read that line, and then we can do what we want. And then it'll move up and loop, and then I'll do that and that and that and that. So it's always doing it in pairs. So now that we've got those 2 values, we can then in the rich edit, 1.3.lines.add, we're going to add the text. How do we want it? We want the address. So we're going to put SADD plus what do we want next? Then we want to put a little bit of a dash. You can see there's a little dash there. So I'm going to put a dash. Then I'm going to put the number, which we got from the number of bedrooms. So I'm going to put the number of bedrooms over there. And then I'm going to add the text bedroom house, dash bedroom house, dash bedroom house. So I think that is correct. I think that's all they want. So let's run it. Read the text file. Do we get the exact same values that they want? I'll move it to the side. Looks spot on. Looks exactly how they want it. So there we go. Perfect. I think it's done. Let's move on to the next one. 1.4. Learners at a school are going on an excursion. 2 rich edit components, number 1 for P and 1 for NP, have been provided that display the names of those who have paid and not. So they want us basically, we're going to take names from a combo box, extract the name from the combo box, and if they have indicated paid, we must check the name of the learner must be added to the paid rich edit. If it's not, it must be to the not paid. And then they say remove the name from the combo box. Okay, so let's do the first part, the easy part first. So let's come over here. We're going to come here to add name. There's my combo box and there's my checkbox. So we're going to double click here and let's first get to the name. So make a variable s name, type string, and I want to extract that name. So s name, we're going to get from the combo box, which I think is CMB. There's the combo box. How do we get the value from the combo box, the one that's selected? Well, it's quite simply a .text. It's that easy. If it was a list box, it would be a little bit more complicated, but a combo box is nice and easy just to get the text property. Now that we've got that, now I need to check that checkbox, which I think was HB. If the checkbox, there we go, checkbox 1-4. If it was ticked, that means the check property equals true. That means that they have paid. Then we want to add to which rich edit? We want to add to the paid one, which if I remember correctly, there's 2 of them. The one's paid, the one's not paid. So we're going to add to that one. So .lines.add, we're going to add this name to the paid one. If it's not checked equals true, it's checked equals false. So we're going to just put an else here. Remember, we removed the semicolon before. If it's not checked, then we're going to do the exact same thing. We can almost copy and paste this. But instead of putting it into that rich edit, we're going to put it in the Q1 underscore 4. We're going to put it in the one with the no paid, which I think is NP, like that. So there we go. So if it's true, put it into the paid one. If it's not true, put it into the no paid one. It's literally that simple. Let's just test that it works. So if I select a name like Andrew and I've paid, it should appear there. But if I click on it again, but I uncheck it first, then it's going to go to that one. So let's just tick with a random name. Godfrey is going to not paid. If I paid and say that Nicole's paid, then it's going to go there. So it's working. The difference is we actually want to remove the names. Once their names has been added to the list, we want to remove their name, and that's quite easy. We're just going to, once we've done all this, we're just going to say the combo box dot items dot delete. And which one do we want to delete? We want to delete a number. Now, the number is the one that is selected. Now, to find the one that is selected, we take the combo box that we're getting from, and we're going to get the item index of the one that is selected. So the item index is the one that's currently selected. So just delete that one, please. I think that should work. So let's try it. So if I take Andrew and say he's paid, do you notice how Andrew's not on the list anymore? Now, if I take that person and they haven't paid, then it goes there. Now, if I take that person and they have paid, they're going to go there. If I take Nadia and she hasn't paid, it's going to go there. So there we go. So you can see that it's working. There we go. Now, one more question to go. One more, and then we're done. 1.5. Let's move to 1.5. A password must be compiled for each learner attending the excursion. The user must enter the name and surname of the learner in the edit box. The following code has been provided. The content of the edit box has been saved in a variable s surname s name. Let's go check that out. I'll scroll here. Okay, so they've got both the surname and the name together, and we have a string that contains these special characters. Now, we need to reverse the characters and remove all the spaces in the surname string, then display the reversed string with no spaces in the memo control, then replace every third character in the reverse string with, it's got quite a bit of string handy here, display the password. Okay, so it's quite a bit. So the key here is we can't actually replace the third character until we have a reversed string, and that reversed string can't even have spaces. So remember, so we're going to first go and remove all the spaces. So let's go see what we're going to do. So first of all, we've got the input already. So we know S name is. So now I want to create another string, which is going to be the reverse of it. So let's make it reverse. So I'm going to take and add each character. So let's say this name is Mr. Long, for example. So I'm going to add every character, but I actually want to start with the last character. So I'm starting with the G. So I'm going to have a for loop. So let's make a variable I of type integer, and we're going to loop from the back. For I equal, how do we know where we're going to loop from? Well, how many characters are going to be in this string? Well, we don't know, but we know the length of it. So I'm going to loop from the length of the string until 1. but we're going from a big number to a small number. So that means we're using down to 1. So it's going to start with that last position. That's the position of the last character. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say S reverse is equal to whatever's in S reverse plus each individual character. So how do I get the individual character that we're looking at? We go get the string and we get character R. So R, for example, in this case, Mr. Long is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 characters. So it's going to loop from, so this would loop from 11 to 1. So it's going to take the 11th character and add it onto reverse. Oh, but when it does that the first time, what does reverse start off being? It's like if we had a sum variable, we'd have to initialize to 0. So we must initialize reverse to the 0 string, which is just the null string of nothing. So it's nothing. Go take the 11th character, add it on. Then go get the 10th character, add it on. And then the 9th, and then the 8th until 1. But we only want to do this if it's not a space. We want to remove the spaces. So if it's a space, we don't want to do this. So as long as it's not a space, let's do it. So I'm actually going to add an if statement here. If the character that we want to add, which is this character, if that character is not a space, in other words, how do we say not a space? Well, that's if it equals a space. How do I say if it's not a space? Well, what's the opposite of equal to? It's not equal to. How do we say not equal to? We say shine bright like a diamond. So that's my diamond symbol. If it's not a space, then add it. If it is a space, it won't do that step, which means it'll skip it. And then let's just display it in the rich edit. I think it's a rich edit. Let's go look. I don't think it's a rich edit. It's a memo. So in the memo, .lines.add, we're going to add this reverse. Let's just see that we get it correct. So there's Lily Johnson. We're going to type reverse. Let's go look at the text. Do we get the exact same? It looks exactly this. I think it's exactly the same. There we go. There's no spaces in reverse. Fantastic. So we've done the first part. Now that we've done that, now we must go and replace every third character of the reverse one. Not taking the third character of Lily Johnson. We're taking the third character of whatever that is. I don't know how to pronounce that in reverse. So whatever that is. So if you look at NOS, that S now is replaced by a character. Then 1, 2, 3, that O is now replaced by a character. So replace every third character with a special character randomly provided. So ours might not look like this because it's random. So we want a random character. So we've got this string here. So let's first, we're going to now loop through this reverse, which we can actually go from 1 until the length of S name, surname. So we're going through each character individually. That's fine. And now we're going to create a new password. So I'm actually going to create another variable called sPassword. And again, we're going to construct this password. And we're going to say sPassword is equal to nothing. Let's start off with nothing. And then we're going to start with the first character and then the second character. If the character that we're looking at, so R will tell me the first character or second character. If R is the third character, so how do I know if it's a third or the sixth? If we divide it by 3, there should be no remainder, which means we're actually going to mod 3. If we take R, which is a 1, and we mod 3 is equal to 0. 1 won't mod 3 equals 0. 2 mod 3 won't equal 0. 3 mod 3 will equal to 0. Mod gives me the remainder. So if I divide 3 into 3, there's nothing left over. That's the third character. 6. If I divide 3 into 6, that will be the sixth character. 3 into 9 will be a 0. That'll be the 9th character. That's every third character. If it's a third character, then that's where it gets tricky. We're going to first get a random character. Okay, so how do we get a random character? So we want to get either position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So there's 6 possible characters. I think we can assume that is always 6. So I'm going to get a random number. So let's get a R random. And just like we did before, we're going to get R random. Did I say R random? R random. R random is going to equal to random range, and we want a random number from 1 to 6 because there's 6 possible characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember, that goes from 1 until 1 before that. So they will go from 1 to 5. We're going to go from 1 to 7. So from 1 to 7, this is going to generate a random number from 1 to 6. Okay, great. So it's going to be a 3, for example. Then we're going to say our password is going to be equal to whatever the password is currently plus a random character from S characters. So I'm actually going to use this S characters. We're going to add on from S characters, square bracket, which character we don't, well, it's going to be one of these random ones. It can be 1, it could be 2, it could be up until 6. So go add that character to the password. If it's not a third character, then we're just going to add the original character too. So if it's not the third character, so that's why we need an else here. If it's not the third character, then the password is going to be whatever's in the password plus the original character, which is sname, and the character that we are currently looking at, which is R. So if it's a third character, go get a random one from here, add it on from S characters. Don't add the original, just add a new one instead. Right? But if it's not divisible by 3 and has no remainder, if it's the first or the second or the fourth or the fifth, then add the original one. And then once that's done, once the loop is done, because you can only do this once the loop is done, then we're going to add to the memo, which is exactly the same as what we did there, but this time we're displaying the password string, which we said was nothing. Remember, we initialized it and then we keep adding onto it. Let's try that. We're going to replace. Now remember, ours might not be exactly the same because it's random, but it does. Why is ours so weird? Why is ours looking, Mr. Long, I think we worked with the original text and not the reverse one. So there is our mistake. So we are replacing every third character with a random character. That is working. However, Mr. Long, we did this whole reverse over here. Why didn't we use it? So we're not actually looping from 1 to the length of sname. We're looping until the length of reverse, because it could be shorter because there's no spaces. And when we get a character, we're not adding a character from S surname name. We're getting the character from the reverse. So by just not using the S name original, we're using our special reverse one. This should work better now. Let's try it now. Boom. Compared to the original, it looks like it's working. So every third character is changing. Okay, I was a bit nervous there because it got the same random character 3 times, but then the last one was right. If I click on it again, yeah, it is randomly selecting random characters. Okay, so it is working. Okay, I'm happy with that. Whew, I was nervous there. Okay, so that's the question. I think that's 1.5. We're done. Make sure that you are saving. Please make sure you save regularly. Don't wait till the end like I just did now. Make sure that you save regularly. And now let's move on to question 2. All of our resources are for free, but we do ask for you to do one special favor for the channel, and that could be that you could please subscribe to the channel and share us with your friends so that we can continue doing what we're doing for free. That will really help us out. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.